Is Jesus's yoke really easy or his burden really light? Oftentimes, it doesn't feel like in the Christian life that he actually is calling us to rest because life is just busier and busier. It can be really overwhelming and you could be feeling burnt out right now. God is not a fan of burnout. I'm not a fan of burnout, and I tend to find myself burning out. And so these are 3 ways that I've actually had to continue to come back to avoiding burnout, because there is this mantra in life in general to do more. And if you have more, you'll feel more full. And that actually isn't true. Whenever you feel like, okay, if I can just do one more thing and that'll make me feel better, then if that sentence pops up in your mind, then it's time to actually do less. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 3 ways that you can practice avoiding burnout and taking care of your soul by having intentional soul care to avoid the hamster wheel and to actually live the life of rest. Jesus said in John 10:10 that I have come to give you life and have life abundantly. So when we think of abundance, we think of a lot of stuff on the calendar or a lot of stuff to do or more. The abundance I believe Jesus is talking about is really an inner experience of fullness that doesn't have to do with our external circumstances and our calendar at all. A spiritual director friend of mine once said, busy is a matter of the calendar, hurried is a matter of the heart. And so what does the abundant life look like from your heart? Living from the inside out and not doing external behaviors to either please God or to work for God or to make life happen. But how could you have an inner stillness, an inner shalom, which is wholeness, a sense of peace that surpasses understanding? In the midst of the chaos, you can feel centered and grounded in your identity in Christ and who you are. I'm not talking about being lazy and being indifferent or apathetic. I'm talking about being intentional, about saying no to all the extra fluff that isn't life-giving and saying yes to taking care of yourself and to steward the life that God has called you so that you can bring him glory and so that you can rest and abide in him. As John 15 tells us, to abide in him. And that apart from him, we can do nothing. And your burnout is apart from God. He's with you and he loves you. But if you're watching this video and you're saying, yes, I feel like I'm burnt out. Yes, I want to do less and to have more peace and to actually have more things off my calendar or just more things off my mind and my heart. Calendar might even be the same. Then this video is for you. Maybe this is an invitation from God. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Meryl. I'm a spiritual director and a spiritual formation coach. So let's get into this video. The first exercise that I would encourage you to do to care for your soul is to actually spend 15 minutes writing down all of your priorities. What are the things that you have in your life that you're doing? And then what are the things that are actually your priorities? So free associate write for 10 to 15 minutes and write down everything from what's on your calendar to who's in your life to what is driving you. What are your goals? Are you in school? Do you have multiple jobs? Are you a single mom? Like wherever you are in your life, write down all of the things that your life is holding. And then what are the things that are priority? Highlight those things. Oftentimes we say we're so busy, we can't fit anything else in. But there's a story of a woman who actually had a very busy life. She was a big time lawyer. She had 2 young kids. She had a vibrant ministry at her church that she was a part of. She was a busy girl and she was very, very tired and exhausted. And she also had these other passion projects that she really wanted to be part of, but she said she couldn't find time for it because everything was demanding of her, which for sure she had a really full life. Well, one Wednesday afternoon around 2 p.m., she gets a call from the babysitter that the water heater broke. And now there is water all over the entire floor of the house. The husband was out of town for a trip, and so she was the one who had to take care of this. So even though she didn't have one more hour or 30 minutes maybe before to pray to God, to ask God for some peace, to figure out her priorities, from 2 p.m. all the way till the next morning, she was dealing with this crisis of getting her water heater fixed. She needed to have water. You just need your water heater right in your house. In a matter of minutes, her priority went from, I'm so busy, I don't have time to pray, I don't have time to really pursue my passion projects, to this became a priority. She made 7 to 10 hours of time to give to this water heater. Now, it was a very frustrating priority, but it became an immediate priority. And so oftentimes we're burnt out because we're doing a lot of things that aren't life-giving, and we've let go or said yes to too many things that aren't actually giving us life, that we lost our priorities along the way. You actually have the same amount of time that I do. We all have the same amount of time. It's just, how do we manage that time? What is a priority in your life, right? Before a water heater breaks, that 7 hours could be dedicated to something that you have really been praying about pursuing, or spending time having a day of Sabbath or rest. Or you can find that time on the calendar, even in the midst of kind of a crazy work schedule. You can find an hour or two, 10, 15 minutes. So what are your priorities? There's another exercise that I'll add is where you can actually write down for a whole entire week. It's very tedious, but write down all the activities you do and give them like a plus or a minus and see, does this give me life or does this drain me? It can be really eye-opening to see what are the things that you have said yes to that are not actually, one, in line with your priorities, who God's called you to be, who your personality is, what your loves or desires are, or what's actually benefiting your family or soul care. So by taking stock and looking at your priorities and what is life-giving or not and what is on your calendar is going to really help you to develop soul care. Because the second piece of having intentional soul care is saying no. I love the parable where Jesus talks about how a father asks his son to do something and he says yes right away, but then doesn't do it. And then he asks another son to do it and their son says no. And then later on comes back and does it. And he says, which son is the father more pleased in? Obviously the one who said no first and then came around and did it. Now, it's not about the doing the thing, but the fact is that he was owning his yes and his no, right? Own your yes and your no. Oftentimes we say yes, but we really mean no. And if we're burnt out, that means we've been neglecting and ignoring who we are, and we're living a life of kind of fantasy that we are overextending ourselves. We're finite. You have a limited amount of resources and time and energy. And if you don't care for yourself, you're actually not going to be available to love those. All the people that you're saying yes to, you think it's because you want to be loving. And while those motives are there, you actually are running yourself ragged. You're not going to be able to actually get enough sleep and really be fully present and be who God has called you to be if you're pleasing other people. There's a lot of motivators that drive burnout, and this video isn't going to cover that, which let me know if you want me to make a video on the motives for burnout. I would be happy to. But when you can say no to things, you're saying yes to God in your life. And so getting clear on what your no is and what your yes is a big form of soul care. And I wish I had that permission. I used to think soul care was the spa days where I got my nails done, or I took a long nap, or I got to eat ice cream, or I worked out at the gym even, right? Those are soul care because they're taking care of my body, which is the soul. And those are definitely forms of soul care. But I didn't really get permission to say no to a lot of things, just give me margin. If I wanted to pray more and I feel like I had to get up in the morning and rush off to school, or, stay out late and work that extra shift at the restaurant, I was saying yes to things because I felt like I had to make more money. When I look back, I'm like, I didn't need that extra $200, $300. I mean, you may be in a different situation, but it was this incessant need to say yes because I wanted to accomplish more and more. And actually saying no would have given me a lot more life and had a lot more peace and enjoyed God. I'd enjoyed the people that I was living with and in my life. So say no, that is a form of soul care. It's actually a form of love. It's actually fulfilling the second greatest commandment, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. So taking care of yourself. Look at what Jesus did. He wasn't in a hurry about anything in scripture. Number 3 is creating a rule of life. This is where these other two, the first one, which was to kind of get your priorities and figure out what is happening with your time. Second is giving yourself permission to say no and have your no be no. The third part is building a rule of life, which I actually have an extensive guide, which I will link up here, about the rule of life and how to design your life in all areas, from your relationship with God to your friends to all the external stuff like work and money, to really say, what are my priorities, and actually create a plan and create a guide. It's not a rule in terms of a strict do or don't. It's a rule in terms of like a trellis. It kind of gives your life support so that you can flourish. So trellis, right? You have it for grapes. If the grapes just grew on the ground, they'd be in a heap on the floor, right? That's what burnout leads to? Exhaustion, coming in at the end of the day, like just wiped. You can be tired and have a full life and not be burnt out because you're doing things that are giving you life, right? Like a plus and minus on that scorecard of what you're doing in your life. Does it give you energy or does it take from you? Having a rule of life can guide those decisions and go, you know what? This is who I am. This is what my identity is. This is what God has called me to in this season. I can get clear about it. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every single time. Zig Ziglar said that. And so having a rule of life is going to reorient your life to a life of soul care. So you can actually plan your soul care. Do the spa day, do the things that mean a lot to you in your life, whatever that is, whether that's playing basketball with the guys or whether that's spending time coloring with your son after school as opposed to running around trying to meal prep and trying to do all these things. Figure out what this season's about, and Rule of Life will really help you that. I also really unpack it a lot more in my year-long program. So if you're looking to really get more in depth about this, you can definitely check that out on my website. We really unpack rule of life, identity, having prayer practices that are life-giving. Check out this video next, and I'll see you in the next video.